Pnawn da, good afternoon from a beautifully sunny Cardiff in South Wales. My name is Russell Todd, Wales Coordinator for Sport and Heritage. It's an honour to be invited to chair the showcase and case study panel, the first of two today. I'll introduce the guests very, very briefly, and they're welcome to say a little bit more about themselves and their roles as part of their case studies as well. But before I do, thank you to Jess Hartson, who is scribing away furiously. Sterling job, that visual kind of graphical stuff. When I see that, it blows my mind. I'm humbled and amazed by what you're doing. We've got 4 case studies, 5 speakers. One of the case studies is shared, and I'd like to invite first of all, we've got Ola Ayegbeo, the Black Lionesses Bookmark Project, a researcher. Ola's a multimedia storyteller, researches and tells historical sports stories about underrepresented voices for a diverse audience. We have Richard King, who's possibly familiar to a few of you before if you've been to some of the sport and heritage events. Long career in local government, around community and arts development, public art, things like that. Works freelance, combines some of that freelance work as a heritage project officer with the Eagles Foundation, Sheffield Eagles Rugby League Club. Welcome Charlotte Hughes, Head of Heritage at Yorkshire Cricket Foundation. And then the joint case study is with Faye Morrissey, Manager and Curator at the Armitt Museum, Gallery and Library in Ambleside in Cumbria. And judging by his surname, I'm glad I'm not in the room with him. We're doing this visually. Virtually, we've got Peter Todd Hunter, Community Co-Curator, and as well as a career in the nuclear industry, a fell runner, and he's the Community Co-Curator for the Running into Fells, apologies for the accent and the pronunciation, project and exhibition, and we'll tell us a little bit more about that at the Armitt. We'll be taking questions, kind of comments, inviting comments in the panel, in the chat panel. But we'll be taking questions of the speakers after they've done their presentations. So maybe hold some of those back rather than having to go searching back through the chat too far. But Ola, you're our first speaker. You're welcome to say a little bit more about yourself if you wish. We'll get your slides up as well. But yeah, welcome to the conference, and over to you.
Thank you, Russell. Just want to check and everyone see my slides. Great. So my name is Ola Ayegbeo, and I'm going to be talking about the Black Lionesses project that over the next 10 minutes. And this is a self-funded project I did last year. And just a little bit about myself. I'm a researcher. I used to be an academic researcher many months ago, but now a product user researcher. I'm also British Nigerian, and my passions are really the intersection between sports, particularly football, history, and telling minority stories. So that is something that I'm really interested in. So in 2016, I did a poster exhibition for Black History Month, and at the University of Huddersfield, where I used to work, and that was very successful. So in 2023, I was keen to do something again for Black History Month. And at this time last year, around about April, May, I was like starting to think, what could I do that was challenging and interesting for me to pursue after 7 years of not doing much for Black History Month. And something that, and I had this creative constraints I had to work around. One was the Black History Month theme, which was Saluting Our Sisters. So the other was, I wanted to do something with bookmarks because I love books, and I wanted to work with bookmarks because a lot of the stuff I do tend to be digital projects. So I wanted to do something that was more physical and an artifact that people could take away. Also, I love local libraries. Everywhere I've lived, I've always been part of the local library community. I wanted to do something involving them as both distribution and partnering with local libraries. Again, wanted to stay within football as the sport. And And all I needed was that story that connected all these four constraints to play with. And so the inspiration was the Women's World Cup that was held last year in Australia and New Zealand. I know we have some folks in the chat from earlier on that are based in Australia. So that was the inspiration for this. And the question that arose from this was, who are the Black female football players to have played for the England national team? And for those of you who follow the England national team, you would know that the men are called Lions and the women are called Lionesses. So the question basically is that who are the Black Lionesses for the England national team? And so using my research skills, I needed to gather those names. I visited Wikipedia, and thankfully there were people who have like curated a page of all the over 200 players that officially have played for the England national team. And most of those names have individual pages. So I had to manually go because I couldn't just rely on the names. Some names were obvious that they were of Black descent, but most names were English names, so it was hard to decipher whether they were of Black descent. So I had to physically go through each page just to check their Wikipedia profile page to see whether they were Black or white. And so I got 20 plus, I got 21 names, I believe, from Wikipedia. And then I came across a website called JJ Heritage, which is created by a lady called Jean Williams. She is the professor of sports history at De Montfort University at Leicester. So I was able to get two names. She had done something similar. I was able to get two names from our website. And then finally, what I wanted to avoid was that I create the bookmarks, I launch it, and then someone gets back to me and say, "Oh, you missed out my name, or you missed out my aunt's name, or you missed out my daughter's name," and I didn't want that. So I contacted the Football Association because they are the ones that issue out the football to the players. They are the ones that officially record this. So to verify my list, so I sent a spreadsheet to them to say, "Look, these are the names I've gathered. Can you just verify that I do have all the names that are the Black Lionesses?" And they go back and said most of them are correct. They added one name to it, and they corrected one of the dates as well. So I was able to get 23 players who have played between a certain period of time, which I will go into. So once I'd done this, I approached the Kent Libraries because I live in Kent, so it just made sense to connect with Kent Libraries. I reached out to them to say, "Look, this is my project there. I would love to partner with you guys and also to distribute through your local libraries because Kent has a lot of libraries within the county." And they said, yeah, they were happy to be involved, but they said the designs had to align with their in-house design requirements, that they weren't going to release anything that they were happy about. So I had to work closely with them, go through a lot of iterative designs before they were finally happy. And then they also told me that they didn't have any funds to support this. So I had to self-fund this project myself. And thankfully, it wasn't too expensive. And another reason why I decided to take it on financially was that if I don't tell the story, then who will tell the story? So I took it as a challenge that I was going to pay for this out of pocket, and also my time and efforts as well that was being invested in this. And then, so this is what the bookmarks look like. So on the left-hand side of my screen, we have the celebration of Black Lionesses. You have all the names of the 23 players. And the way I've structured it is that as a cloud library, in a cloud format, so that you have the bigger the names are, the older the earlier they are participate their membership of have been played for the national team. So the biggest name you see there is Kerry Davis. So she was the official first person to have played for England, and so in the 70s. And then you have names that some of you might be familiar with, like Hope Powell is another person. She used to be England's national coach as well, and she used to be Brighton's coach as well. So between 72 and 2023, we've had 23 players of Black descent who have played for the national team. And also, I ended up printing 5,000 bookmarks because that was what I could afford at the time, and which was distributed through 99 Kent libraries in October of last year. And some of the requirements that Kent Library wanted was to have their logo, to have a QR code that linked to a collection of Black History Month book collections on the website. And also, I introduced a tag about Black history, Black stories, which was something that I wanted to have on those bookmarks as well. So, in terms of impact, one thing that was great was that Carrie Davis contacted me. She discovered my project online on her own, and this was something she said in her email. I've just seen your project, the book markers for Black History Month, honoring the Black Lionesses. Thank you for acknowledging, remembering, honoring us. I'm so very proud you did this for us. So for me, that was the biggest highlight in terms of having Carrie Davis contact me. And she requested 100 bookmarks for herself and for her family members as well. And again, she contacted me afterwards to say she wanted bookmarks for the remaining 22 Black Lionesses that she wanted to send it to them just to show what the effort that I've put into this project. And another impact was I got the opportunity to attend the London FA and Football Beyond Borders event, which was at Wembley Stadium. I've never been to Wembley Stadium, so last year was the first time being to Wembley Stadium, which was very cool. And I got the opportunity to talk about this project and also to distribute some of these bookmarks to folks as well. So thank you very much for your time. But before I leave you, I just would like to encourage you to visit my website, horribinternational.com. And on that website, there are also other projects, sporting heritage projects that I worked on, such as the 1949 Nigerian football team project that Todd, who came to the UK in 1949. And one thing that was notable about them was that they play with a bare feet. So a lot of people were just like astounded, like it blew their minds to have Black players, and they won some matches as well, so which was pretty cool. The ill-fated 1976 tennis tournament in Lagos, Nigeria as well, that featured some of the biggest stars in tennis tournaments at the time. And I encourage you to read the story. There are a lot of crazy things that happened during that tour. And also the 1969 Santos tour, which features Pele, that came to Nigeria during the Nigerian Civil War in 1969. And finally, an audio project I did, which is called We Are Town, because I used to live in Huddersfield. And this was an oral history project I did with Huddersfield female football fans, and basically trying to get them to tell me about their stories, and which I edited into small clips, which is also on the website. So yeah, visit the website. I would love to connect and collaborate with you guys. And also, I'm looking for my next project, so definitely be happy to work with you guys. So yeah, thank you very much, and I will hand it back to Russell.
Thank you, Ola. Absolutely fascinating. A couple of comments echoing that as well in the chat. So thank you for those. We'll hand over straight to Charlotte Hughes now.
Hello, everybody. My name's Charlotte. I have been Head of Heritage for the Yorkshire Cricket Museum since May 2022. I work for the Yorkshire Cricket Foundation, which is the charity arm of the Yorkshire County Cricket Club. I'm going to be talking today about our ongoing collection work, the primary goal of which is to make the history of cricket in Yorkshire available to everybody, whether they're a lifelong fan or whether they're from a country where cricket isn't even played. So this is a nice fancy image of the Yorkshire Cricket Museum. From its inception in 2011, the museum at Yorkshire Cricket has told the story of when Yorkshire were doing well. Though nobody wants to dwell on losses, obviously, cricket in Yorkshire is so much more than winning championships. And what the work that we are doing is working to reflect cricket in Yorkshire and all that entails through our exhibitions, research, and importantly, caring for our collection. So I am a staff team of one, and I quickly identified that the collection was in need of a full inventory, both for the sake of the collection itself and the museum, but also to allow us to work with more focus towards accreditation. To enable this to move forward with purpose, I was able to begin recruiting in December 2022 for a team of volunteers to work on research to improve our interpretation, museum welcome, and our collection and inventory projects. As of right now, I have just over 50 people volunteering across all the different projects and programmes that we've got going on. People obviously volunteer for a variety of different reasons, so some of those are cricket related, some are heritage related, and some for the social element of volunteering. I've also been able to partner with Leeds Beckett University, the University of York, and the University of Huddersfield so far to work with me across our different projects, across collection care, our research programmes, which includes our new exhibition programme that we've launched this season, which is on uncovering the hidden histories of cricket in Yorkshire. And I'll talk more about that later. So discovering our collection. To discover our collection, we are going through the process of recording every archive piece and every object to Spectrum standard. The museum was ran previously by volunteers, as is the story of many, and we do have a catalogue, but it's not up to the standard that we need it, so we're doing a lot of work around that. In doing this, we're also looking at items that may have never have been looked at again after they initially came into the collection. So that's really, really exciting, and we're hoping that it will uncover all sorts of new research opportunities, opportunities for exhibition, and a chance to connect with local communities as well. And obviously introducing cricket in Yorkshire further afield than just cricket in Yorkshire. So in doing that, I'd already identified the previous collecting pattern. We've put together a forward plan in filling in collection gaps, which I think is a common thing amongst many different museums. And we're hoping to create a more rounded representation of cricket played in Yorkshire and represent underutilised groups in our sport. And all of the key to this is safeguarding our collection. And another key point of the work is to physically safeguard it so it exists for future generations. We are fortunate to be partnered with the West Yorkshire Joint Services, as the majority of our collection is held off-site at their archive in Morley. And they, in turn, make part of our collection available in their reading room, which is fantastic. As a member of the public, you can request to see minute books and score sheets and all sorts of different things about Yorkshire cricket played at Headingley. The rest of our collection is what we are doing in the collection care. So we're creating an image and scan database of our collection through digitising and through the inventory, which we hope in time will be able to bring online, which will obviously be key to releasing that data to people across the world. We're also excited to be able to look at transcription work in our archive once we've made significant progress in our inventory and digitisation, but I have to remind myself to rein it in the meantime. We've got lots of projects that can be up and coming, but we're not quite at that point yet. And as I was saying about sharing our collection, all of the work will, we hope, result in the Yorkshire Cricket Museum being able to share the histories through to the present day cricket played in Yorkshire. We are changing our profile to better represent communities within cricket and open the sport up to more people through our exhibits and future outreach work that the collection care will generate. Sort of the culmination of this as well is diversifying our stories that we tell. And as I mentioned before about the partnership that we have with the University of Huddersfield, we have just launched, this is the first year of the exhibition series, which is really, really exciting. Exhibition on the history of women's cricket played in Yorkshire. This is also launched in a space that is primarily members only, so not just in the museum itself. It's in the long room, which obviously is, long, as you can well imagine, very imaginatively named. It's a space primarily for members, as I say, but the long room plays host to many different events across the year. I know we have weddings on this site, so all sorts of different people will see it, including families, because during the hundreds, format of cricket, they have face painting in there. So we're going to have all sorts of different people that will see these diverse stories that we're going to tell within that space. And the research that the students that we've worked with at the University of Huddersfield have been able to do will insist in turn in our reinterpretation of our permanent exhibitions and help make the museum a space that reflects the history of the game in our county and all the peoples involved that make it happen. And that's everything from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlotte. Just a reminder, we'll take questions after all of the case studies have been done. So please put those in the chat a little bit later, so we don't have to go searching for them, and make it clear if it's maybe directed at a particular speaker or whether maybe it's a question for more than one. We'll do our best to answer that. Okay, so who have we got next? I've got a different screen over here, and it's Richard King, Sheffield Eagles Heritage Project, Rugby League. Richard, over to you.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to give you a bit of a brief overview of the Sheffield Eagles Heritage Project, a project I've managed for the last 2 years. For those that aren't aware, Sheffield Eagles, it's a rugby league team in the Championship. So that's the level below Super League, the top flight. The team itself is part-time, formed in 1984, celebrating its 40th anniversary this year, currently second in the league, and has average attendances of around 1,000. For many people, this is probably the image of rugby league, male-dominated, muddy, wet, tough, northern. And I mean, rugby league has always been quite an inclusive sport. And again, the Sheffield Eagles today operates under the One Club banner, got wheelchair, women's, learning disability, physical disability, walking and touch rugby teams, all playing in the same kits under the same banner as part of a One Club. The foundation, Eagles Foundation, which is the charitable arm linked to the club, was successful at the end of 2021, start of 2022, securing just over £93,000 from the Heritage Fund for a 2-year project, which we've managed to get extended to 2.5 years, employing myself as a part-time project officer with the aim of collecting, recording and sharing the stories of the Eagles. As Russell mentioned in the introduction, I kind of got background in local government and freelance, but I've also been a Sheffield Eagles supporter for 35 years, so it's been a great way to bring everything together. So objectives, it is about recording and cataloguing the heritage for the first time, making it accessible, make it coherent, make it an engaging source of information that people want to find out more. It's about highlighting the importance of the Sheffield Eagles and the history of rugby league, but also the changing face of rugby league over the last 40 years. Broadening people's understanding of what heritage means, engaging a wide range of people, and then creating a framework for the future heritage of the Eagles. So looking beyond the 2.5 year lifetime of the project to kind of make sure heritage is embedded in the future of the organisation. And it is about having stories at the heart. What are the interesting stories? What is the universal that can engage people? If we just focused on Eagles fans, it would be a limited audience. So how do you collect, present and share those stories to a wider audience? You clearly go beyond the data and stats. It's only interesting to a certain number of people. So my role across the project is really almost like an editor to share those stories in an interesting, engaging way, to find the hooks and the things to bring people in that will be of interest beyond just a rugby league team. So it is a small and loyal following. There's still people supporting the club today that were there at that first game in 1984. So there's that sense of shared experience. But then also, how do you make sure new players, new fans coming in feel part of that shared experience and learn about the history of the club? And the club itself, a huge number of interesting stories. You know, just the idea of it's played at 21 home grounds in 40 years. It was part of the biggest upset in rugby league history. So there's all those stories, a wealth of stories that I could fill 10 minutes just talking about those stories. But it's about what those stories mean to people. What does the club mean to people? And we've used the website at the heart of a lot of what we do. We developed worked with a local web developer for a flexible platform with kind of a really kind of data heavy approach. So the kind of content management system, I think we've got about 10,000 documents on there now. So it's about that kind of structure and that searchable collection, but using those to illustrate the stories. It's become the backbone of the project. And again, it's that editorial role for me. So I've commissioned other volunteers to write stories that we then feature on the website. Programs. We've now uploaded over 1,100 programs, scanned and uploaded them to the website, which we think is about 90% of every program home and away over the last 40 years. And credit for that goes to Ian, one of the kind of long-term fans. Recently retired, took it upon himself to scan his entire collection of 600 programs, and then, not content with that, kind of liaised with lots of other fans and sourced another 500 that he scanned and uploaded. So all of them searchable. It's a huge resource, but again, it goes beyond just that kind of, you know, oh, it's nice to have. There's a kind of a social history there. Changing, you know, I enjoy looking at shop adverts from 1990. There's that sense of changing times, changing design, but then we can use those to illustrate stories on the website. Eagles office had cupboards full of DVDs and VHS tapes. Kit manager himself had a collection of over 300 DVDs that were just sitting there. So I've taken it upon myself to copy those onto kind of the cloud drive. I found a volunteer to transfer the, I think, remaining 15 VHS tapes that had been transferred. So by the end, we'll have about 421 games there, dating back to the first ever game that Eagles played, which includes a commentary. So kind of this wealth of things. It's the same case with the photos. There were drawers full of CDs, folders of physical photos, no order to anything. So we've now kind of transferred those. There's about 10,000 photographs, all kind of year allocated to years, allocated to specific matches, there as a future resource. And linked to this on the website, we've got a timeline, and Ian, the volunteer who scanned the programs, has taken it upon himself to do a season by season summary of every season there's been in 40 years. I think he's halfway through those now. So using the programs, using this press cutting as a starting point, giving an overview of the seasons, but picking out some of those key stories. And it gives that overview and kind of timeline of the club that's never existed. We worked with Sheffield Museums. They offered this opportunity to have a temporary display case at Weston Park Museum in Sheffield. We worked with an external curator who worked with fans, and it was about how do you capture the Eagles in a small display case to an audience. You know, the museum gets about 250,000 visitors. Most of them wouldn't be aware of the Eagles. So it was about focusing on the inclusivity and universal. As you can see, not a massive display case, but a really good shop window for the club. So it focused on, you know, broken wheelchair wheels, homemade flags, the kind of fanzines that people put together, scarves from the first season. So it was the kind of way engaging people. And you might see a kind of couple of shirts. That was one of the other hooks to draw it in. So the 1996 away shirt, kind of a break with traditions. It was a white shirt with a blue eagle on it. The Sheffield Eagles played in the first ever game of Super League, which is when Sky invested a lot of money. That first ever game was away at Paris, and they wore this away shirt. And it's sort of become known. It featured in Full Monty in 1997. Mark Addy's character Dave wore it in a couple of scenes. So amongst fans, it's known as the Full Monty shirt. Heritage Project worked with the club to produce a replica, and kind of 2 batches of those sold out quickly. But it brought that to a new generation of fans that weren't aware of this as a shirt. The team wore it for a game, and we got Mark Addy down as guest of honour to present him with a shirt. So it's kind of a way of drawing people in. Mentioned already, biggest upset in rugby league history is when the Eagles won the 1998 Challenge Cup, beating Wigan at Wembley. Nobody expected it, and again, it's still celebrated now, which is why we did the 25th anniversary last year. Had a celebration dinner, brought the squad from 1998 together, had an onstage Q&A, highlight the cup run, unseen footage, and it kind of really showed people what the project could achieve. And it was one of the club's most successful dinners in recent years. We produced a limited edition pin badge, a booklet for the night, but also videoed those kind of the talks so we can share that with wider audiences. We were fortunate last year to work with Gareth Walker from Literacy Kicks. He's a rugby league journalist who set up a literacy project using sport as a way of engaging primary and secondary school young people in writing. So we used and worked with him using that 1998 Challenge Cup win as a starting point for children to become sports journalists for the morning, to write their own article, complemented by a tag rugby coaching session in the afternoon. We managed to get players from 1998 team along to virtually all of the sessions so they could talk to the children, answer their questions. We ended up working with over 600 children at 10 primary schools. And we're pleased to have been nominated and kind of shortlisted for an award in the Sport and Heritage Awards, where the ceremony is tonight in Leeds. And then building from that, we recently worked with a learning specialist to produce a 24-page activity booklet focusing on children, using the history and stories of the club as a starting point to engage them, giving that away free at games. I signed off on that yesterday, so that's be ready next couple of weeks. I'd be interested to see the reaction to that. 40th anniversary, we're working with volunteers to try and do a booklet capturing the stories from the last 40 years. We've worked with fans and got a list of 40 players representing each of those 40 seasons. And so we're counting down to the 2nd of September with various activities, badges, bringing the original squad together and having a celebration event like we did for the Challenge Cup. We've also done Hall of Fame, heritage certificates, past players, a whole range of other things, and still a lot to do in the next 5 months. I suppose kind of picking up, what have I learned? We can't do everything. We've only just scratched the surface. It took time to build momentum, kind of really momentum's built now, but we've brought things out into the open. We've engaged and involved through doing, so kind of actual events and activities have engaged people and got them understanding of the project. 2 years wasn't enough for the project, so we were grateful to extend it by an extra 6 months, and the Heritage Fund were happy to do that. And I think it took the club a long time to realise the value of the heritage and what they've got and why it's important now and into the future. Having a small supporter base was both good and bad. You know everybody almost personally, but you're almost drawing on a small and limited number of people. So we're focused on a couple of volunteers working really intensively with us. We've had to adapt, we've tried things out, and that's been great. Legacy for us is kind of grown the understanding of the value of heritage, both for the club, both in itself and the commercial opportunities. We've brought some coherence and kind of sense to the story of the 40 years. We've raised awareness of the club and changed some perceptions. We've put those systems in place for the future. The website will grow. We've kind of got the physical better maintained and the digital store kind of more kind of properly. And we know what there is and where it is. So it's a starting point for the club. And as I said, we've worked with new partners, we've grown the foundation, tested out ideas that the club and foundation will take forward into the future. We've got people talking, remembering and sharing. And I think heritage is now an integral part of the club, the foundation and the fans. It's just the starting point. The club's currently got a planning permission in for a new 5,000 capacity stadium, which hopefully could be ready by 2026. They've allocated a heritage space within that. So there's a potential kind of for that to link with an engagement programme. And it'll be using all the materials we've kind of discovered, shared, stored as part of that new development and making it part of the future for the Eagles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Heard you speak a couple of times around some of the work with the Eagles, but more there that I've learned, not least the ground. So best of luck with that. Should we leave Yorkshire? Let's go a little bit northwest. We'll go over to Cumbria, and Faye Morrissey and still troublesome Peter Todd Hunter, and we'll hear about fell running, which I'm pretty sure I haven't covered on any of the stuff I do with Sport and Heritage. The podcasts we've covered boccia and martial arts and karate, Punjabi wrestling, you name it, but I don't think we've done fell running yet. So this is another sport I can tick off the Sport and Heritage bucket list. Over to you.
Lovely, thanks, Russell. So lovely to see everybody. My name's Faye. I'm the manager and curator at the Armitt, and I'm joined today by Peter Todd Hunter, who is our co-curator community lead for this community exhibition at the Armitt called Running in Fells, and it shares the same name as the group of volunteers that Peter is part of, that have joined together to help us create this really interesting and exciting exhibition, which we believe is the only solely focused fell running exhibition that has so far been done in Cumbria. So it's been a really exciting first few months.
Does it?
So just a little bit about who we are as the Armitt. So I'll cover that first. So we're a charitable organisation which was established over 100 years ago by a lady called Mary Louisa Armitt. We were initially set up as a library, actually, before we later evolved into being a museum. And we cover essentially collections and stories of Ambleside, where we're based, covering the people, the industry, the landscape, and branching out into the wider Lakeland world. So we have a collection of really eclectic pieces, but lots of them really fortunately are able to cover people's stories. And that's kind of where we also linked in quite well with the Running in Fells team, because we wanted to tell a new dynamic story of something that is very passionate in this community, has a great and long tradition. And so we're really delighted to have been able to partner with Peter and his group. So I'll hand over to you to discuss what Running in Fells is.
Right, so Running in the Fells is a start of a huge project that we see in front of us that will bring all the history and the heritage of fell running in the Lake District together into one project, really. It was pulled together by a community of fell runners who sort of got together and discussed this idea of all this heritage that we've got, all these pictures, fell runs and everything that happens in the Lake District. But it was never pulled together into one area where we could show it off. It just happens. You turn up in the field, you pay your £5, you go for a run on the fells in a race, that type of thing. So this project was pulled together to try and see if we could bring together all this heritage, all this history into one area and try to show it off. And then sort of gauge if there was an appetite by the wider public and the fell running community to, to take it on board and push it forward into a bigger project in the future. This is supported by the Fell Running Association, which has over 8,000 members. So we've got that support, and we've been really humbled by people coming and giving us some of their history, some of their things they find in their loft or in the back of the drawer or something like that. So we've been really humbled by what we put on, and we're really pleased with what's going on.
So kind of how did we come together and how was the exhibition formed? Well, Peter and I met back in 2022, and this was during another exhibition that the Armitt had prepared, which was called The Pull of the Fells. And that was all about walking, climbing and mountaineering. Again, something that is very intrinsic to this landscape in this area. And Peter approached me and said, how about we do something about fell running? You've not covered fell running in the Pull of the Fells, and surely that's a key aspect. And so we started having discussions about what could that entail, how could we bring it all together. And obviously with the Armitt, we are a small organisation, but we do have a volunteer board of trustees who do sort of oversee everything ultimately. And so I put forward a proposal that Peter had produced about a fell running exhibition, and this was formally agreed by our trustees at the end of 2022, meaning that we then had a good year to plan and develop an exhibition. So during that 12 months, we had many discussions that changed the narrative of the exhibition from perhaps what was originally discussed around Joss Naylor, who is a very legendary and very big name amongst the community up here, amongst many others, of course. But Peter has been the kind of archivist for a lot of Joss Naylor's own material. And so we initially thought perhaps we could develop it around Joss Naylor's story. But soon we found that it was going to be so much more than that. There were so many other stories of incredible people, both past and present, that needed to be involved in the display. And so the whole year was covered in terms of how were we going to plan this, what was going to be incorporated within it, the funding aspect to an exhibition, how we would go about designing it. So were we going to design it ourselves? Were we going to have external support? Who within the other volunteer group amongst Peter's group were able to help? How are we going to market it to people? How are we going to push it out there to not just the tourists that come to the Lake District, of course, but to the fell running community itself? And then obviously we wanted to include other partnerships and associated events that would also spur people to coming in and finding out more. So we've been really fortunate to, as Peter's mentioned, have that community support. We've had so much incoming material that almost there's too much for us to display. And that just links to what we'll talk about later in terms of the ongoing legacy from this exhibition. But we've also had really good backing and support from local community businesses. So we've actually had contributions from shops within the town, from other running companies and businesses, linked either with equipment or nutrition. So we've been really fortunate to have that link with those people. Furthermore, we've had other Cumbrian museums provide us with loans, which has been fantastic. One of which has been a real mystery because there's very little known about it, and it's actually to do with a military fell race up near the borders. So we're really excited to see, as visitors come through the doors this year, if we'll find any more out about that object.
So, so as Faye commented there, we were quite fortunate that we had Olive Joss Naylor, MBE, the legendary Lakeland fell runner, who really put fell running in the 1960s and the 70s to the forefront of what the sport was about. We had all his vast amount of memorabilia. So that was a good starting point for us, because that gave us a basis we could work off. So working from that basis, we then went backwards and forwards to find out and talk to. I've talked to hundreds of people, and I mean hundreds of people in the fell running community, who have come up with ideas, have come up with bits of memorabilia. With all the shirts, we've got trophies, we've got old shoes, we've got all sorts of old stuff, and some of the new stuff as well. And really, we reached out to the fell running community via Fell Running Association, to social media, and we just asked the question: have you got anything hidden away, or it was your grandfathers, fathers, your mothers, doesn't matter whose it was, just a slip of paper. It doesn't really matter to us what it was. We just need to get hold of it, see where if it fitted into a story somewhere. And then forward, as Faye says, we looked at loads of stuff, and we worked out where we could put all this stuff to show it off at its best. And we've created an exhibition that is the first fell running exhibition in this county, in Cumbria, and it really goes all the way from the late 1800s, where it was the guards races, which was quick sprint up and down, a 5 mile, 3 mile run up and down the fell, right up to the present day, which is now ultra running, trail running, mountain running. The whole encompasses everything now. So it really is good that we've managed to somehow, through a bit of trial and error, we got there in the end. We managed to put this exhibition on, which is, which we're really proud of, and which is getting a lot of positive comments from people.
So we've just got a short little clip of a film to show you that we've produced as part of the exhibition. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this, but if not, it has got subtitles.
So there is just nothing more liberating than being able to run in whatever direction you like. Bomb down open fell side, through bogs, scramble over kind of rocky outcrops.
Part of the reason I wanted to do the Bob Graham was because my granddad had done it, and part of the reason I pretend that I'm an OK orientator now is because my nana did it, and I think if they can do it, then I should be able to do it as well.
Is there a more thrilling thing than throwing yourself down a really technical descent?
You just sort of have to feel your way down and trust that those kind of split-second decisions on where you place your foot, how you respond to the rocks, the grass, the bracken, is something that you trust will happen.
I'd go so far as to say it's a form of worship for the mountains, which might sound a bit much, but it really does feel like that for me.
When I'm out, I often think of my mum and granddad and remember their stories that they told me, and I've always wanted to be able to have stories of my own. I don't think my stories will ever be as good as my nan and granddad's, but I've got stories that they listen to with the same enthusiasm that I listen to their stories, and that for me makes me feel like, I'm not doing too bad in life.
So that's just a little clip of what we've produced and is in part of our exhibition display.
So there is just nothing more
So why is it important for us to share this history? Well, we've already mentioned that currently it's a very special Cumbrian tradition and is part of the local area's heritage. Peter's mentioned that it is part of the sports shows that happen every year around here. So whether it's the Ambleside show here in the town, the Grasmere Sports just up the road, the guides race is still such a big part of that show. It's almost like the pinnacle event at the end of the show. But what's interesting is actually, you know, the Armitt, as I've mentioned, we're not a sporting museum, but there isn't actually a Cumbrian museum or heritage venue which is actually covering all of kind of the county's sporting history. And so part of the reason for this exhibition and for us to do it together is that the Armitt is in a very fortunate central location for the Lake District, and it's an important place for building relationships with the local community members and those further afield. Because through those links that we're building and we're making, hopefully we can take this forwards together as a team to look at how we can preserve and record this ongoing sporting history that is so intrinsic, as I say. The other thing that's really important, and the pictures here on the side show some of our events that we've already hosted this year, is for new people, newcomers, perhaps new runners, to be able to understand where the sport has come from, its growth and its expansion, because it is growing at such a rapid pace now that it's not just perhaps the original fell running that's going on, but the trail running and ultra running. But there's also other important aspects to think about, such as the environment. And we've hosted events about that this year so far.
So what happens next? The exhibition runs till the end of this year, till December. And the whole aim, as I keep saying to people, is to put this exhibition on to give you an idea of what fell running is about, and also to inspire people to go out and have a go at fell running. But it's also here to give an opportunity to see what other items, memorabilia, films, doesn't matter what it is, as I keep saying, what there is out there that we could bring together into one big project, for which the Fell Running Association are now keen on doing alongside with us, to look at, I don't know, in the future, who knows, have a dedicated space that would be a fell running museum or a running on the fells museum. Who knows? You know, if we can have a museum for a pencil, then we can have a museum for fell. That's my sort of what I like to say to people. We don't know how to do it because we're just new. I'm just a fell runner, a Cumbrian fell runner, who thinks this is a good idea, who persuaded Faye it was a good idea, who persuaded the Armitt to put it on. And we really just want to be now looking at the what next. Because the sport is UK-wide. It isn't just a Cumbrian sport. It happens in Yorkshire, it happens all over the UK, in Ireland, in Scotland. You know, as I said, there's about 8,000 people in the Fell Running Association. Goodness only knows how many people go and trail running up these days. You know, you get an event up in the Lake District where you can have 1,000 people doing the trail run. It's absolutely immense. So there's scope there for people to be interested, to get people to think about it and maybe come up with some good ideas, and you know, and then get the wider community to back it in the Lake District or wider. So, you know, we've got it all there. We've got plenty of films, as I say, we've got 10 books on the subject that we've got all in the exhibition. We've got people now who are quite keen on going out and doing recce's on fell races for us and producing videos. So for me, the whole effort of putting the exhibition on has come to a point where we're comfortable now that we've created a platform for people to think, yeah, let's do something with this. And we're getting good feedback now, as I say, from the Fell Running Association, from people like the Armitt, from people like Sport and Heritage, that say, yeah, this is a good idea. How can we help? Can we take it further?
So that's everything from us, but if you want to find out a bit more about the Armitt, these are our details here, and there's also the Running in Fells details on the screen as well. They've got their own website, which means that it'll be able to take forward whatever happens post 2024, and we just hope that it's given you today a little insight into another type of sport. So thank you very much, and back to Russell.
Thank you, Faye. Thank you, Peter. Thank you to all of you for those case studies. We've got some questions coming in. I just made a note. It was a phrase that one of the speakers on the short clip you used around the worship of the mountains. I think if anyone's looking to do their own fell running project, there's the title. Well, one of several, I'm sure. We have got one question specifically related to the voices on that film, which might be a relatively simple one to answer now. I don't know, or maybe it's one to kind of answer directly, but from Hannah Granger asking about the voices, how they were recorded, voice note upload or individual interview, because that's something she's looking to do.
They were top loaded onto the video. We tried to do it in situ as they were running, but it was a windy, awful day, as Cumbria can be, as Wales and that can be as well, living like Cumbria. So yeah, we tried on the day, but we had to top load them, and then we thought we'd put subtitles on as well, just to make sure people could get the words.
Okay. Yeah, so just let me recap. If there's any questions for any of the speakers, add them to the chat. Make it clear who you're asking them of, if it's of someone in particular or if it's a general question. There's also some praise as well for how you displayed the vests in the Armitt as well, which I think has caught people's eye as well. There is one question for Charlotte, or typified by something that Charlotte said. So Raf Nicholson, interesting to hear that some of the speakers have developed partnerships with local universities. For those who have done this, and I'm kind of interested maybe for Ola as well, given how you've referred to your work being sort of self-funded, self-propelled, what sort of, how has that university collaboration come about? Have there been any difficulties? Any advice for the people looking to do that? Maybe start with Charlotte and any of the other speakers, if they have anything to reply to that.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I identified quite quickly, as I said in my presentation, there's a team of one I could probably do with a hand on quite a few different things, and we have 2 exhibition spaces that turn around as temporary ones, and one of those is in the members area in the long room, and it's a big display case with an awful lot of potential. And it was a strange way it came about, actually, for the specific one with the University of Huddersfield. We had a guy who'd done different volunteering work for other departments of the foundation, and he is a history student but also a cricket coach. So he came to talk to me in the museum one day, and he told me about this fantastic partnership that he did at his at Huddersfield in his degree, with Professor Rob Ellis, who's the partner that I've set this up with, where he got to do an exhibition. Which is really irritating. I can't remember specifically where it was, but it was about fireworks. And he just sort of said, would you like to be introduced to Professor Ellis? And I said, yes, I would. Yeah. And yeah, so it came about that way, which was obviously really fantastic for us. And the part of the key reason that I wanted to get other partners involved, and that's just the route it took, was because as a team of one, I can't put the dedication that the research needs into exhibition projects because it's not the only thing I'm doing. So it was really important to me that if we were going to tell and uncover these sort of hidden history stories, and specifically obviously we chose to do women for the 2024 season, I wanted to make sure that they had the research that they deserved into the exhibitions. So that was a lot of why we sought to get partners like this. And then the other 2 that I work with, which are the University of York and Leeds Beckett, they work with our collections. So it's really just giving students the opportunity to do real behind the scenes work in museums. And because we've got this ongoing inventory and digitization, it just seemed like a nice thing for budding heritage professionals to be able to do. In terms of issues we've had, I think the main one I've had is that after Easter, students just sort of disappear. So get it all done before that point was my key takeaway from this. But as a pilot year, that you take a lot of learnings from from things. So we've got all of that to move forward for next year. But overall, the partnership's been fantastic. But I've just found that sort of student age people aren't as good at tech as I expected them to be. Emails apparently aren't what they respond to. I found these things out through the trial. So yeah, but otherwise it's been a really, really good partnership and definitely worthwhile from the foundation's perspective. But I imagine from lots of different museums' perspectives, working with different bodies and therefore bringing in different minds that you might not necessarily have otherwise is really beneficial. Hope that answers it.
Thank you, Charlotte. Anyone else got something to say in reply to that around working with universities? We can move on to another question otherwise. I mean, I can remember doing a podcast a few years back with David from Heritage Key in Huddersfield, and I think he self-deprecatingly referred to himself as the professional idiot, where you had these amateur experts from the community of rugby league coming in and doing some work. And I'm not going to call any of you professional idiots. However, some of that came through in kind of how I sense the origins of Faye and Peter, your project coming together. You know, it's kind of meeting of minds, but from maybe different perspectives. And then this alchemy happens. And I think what's also interesting in what you were saying is new strands have already emerged, or new elements. So you're talking about, okay, well, do we branch out to, I wrote it down, is it ultra running and trail running? Which for someone completely uninformed by any of these things sort of sounds like the same thing, but distinct enough. So even in that 2-year period, it's already kind of identified some other areas it can go down, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so much scope within the Lake District generally, and you know, the Armitt traditionally hasn't got any association with sports, as I've mentioned, and the name is linked to Mary Louise Armitt as the founder. But what I'm really keen on is partnership working and community, and I think this has just been a great learning aspect for both of us in terms of having a real co-curated piece. And you're absolutely right, it's kind of gone off on different branches, and we've been able to work with different people, engage different people. But because sometimes there's quite a disparity between the fell running community and trail runners and ultra runners. They don't like to say that they're part of the same thing, but we're trying to bring them together.
Yeah. The trail running community, I think Lakeland Trails celebrated 20 years this last weekend, just gone, where the fell running community can take themselves way back till 1960 for fell running, and then take themselves way back again to late 1800s for the guide races. So Faye's right. Fell runners like to think themselves as, this is ours. You know, what's this newfangled, shiny new trail run and ultra run scene? But at the same time now, what you find when you go to a fell race or you go to a trail race, is you start seeing the same people doing both now. And it's just joining to be one big community of enjoying going for a run on the fells, which is also part of the exhibition. Is, yes, this is fell running, this is ultra running, trail running, but this should inspire you to go out on the fells and give yourself a go, and maybe go for a fell run or a trail run or something like that.
Well, we've got the weather for it for once. I think many of us have had it for a while. I want to keep you all to time. So thank you very much for the questions, the comments, the enthusiasm that people are sharing for all of your work as well. Thank you for you putting the presentations together and giving up some of your time for your work. I'm sure contact details and things will be shared for people who want to get in touch to maybe explore a few other collaborations, any other sort of comments, observations and things like that. I will let you all carry on with your day. Thank you to Jess as well for the drawing as well. Sorry, shouldn't have forgotten that, but thank you.